And it's incredible. Like, you are international relationship coach, intimacy, sexual, like all of that. That's so interesting for so many people. And I would like to ask you though to describe it yourself. Like, what is that makes you stand out? What is it that makes you so different? And I guess why would people would like to start working with you?
Yeah, well, when it comes to the relationship coaching, I used to be a hot mess when it came to my romantic relationships with men, and that went on for over a decade. I had all these short, failed, painful relationships, and then I studied with my mentor, and everything shifted after that. When I learned, my mentor was Alison Armstrong. She's incredible. And when I learned how differently men think from women and how differently just even our instincts and our behaviors are, I put that work into practice. And my very next relationship was with my husband. And just 3 days ago, we celebrated our 10-year anniversary of the day we met.
Oh,
So,
amazing. Congratulations,
yeah,
by the way.
thank you. Thank you. So, I learned how to be a better partner in relationships. I learned how to communicate with men in the way that they need. So, I continued to study with my mentor. And I got certified and licensed to do all the relationship work and such. But I've created the results in my own marriage after, having several failures and not knowing how to communicate with men, not understanding our core differences. And so people come to me when they want to understand the opposite sex. And here's the thing: if you work with somebody who's the opposite sex, if you have a family member who's the opposite sex, my work does not just apply in romance. It applies to all of our relationships.
So this is the work, I guess, so is it women understanding men, or do you work with together with couples?
I work with couples and singles. So I help men understand women and women understand men. So my book has got, I made sure that I wrote it. I put my favorite material in here. I've got enough material for probably 7 more books, but I put the most important stuff in my very first book that I published last year. And I made sure to have something in there for men and for women to understand themselves as well as the opposite sex. And then over the last year, I have been specializing in sex and intimacy coaching, because one of the things that women don't know is that sex is a biological need for men. And
Right.
men don't know that it's not necessarily a biological need for women. So this is one of the ways that we are so opposite. And so it can be a really hard thing in a relationship when the intimacy is not there at the level that both partners need it. So I teach people how to communicate about that.
Yeah.
And, it's about getting each other's needs met, not just in the bedroom, but throughout the relationship.
I mean, the thing is that, like, for the people that don't know you intimately, and obviously, like, stop me if I'm saying anything that you don't want me to say, but you and your husband have a beautiful relationship. It shows every 10, and it shows in a private conversation. So this is not this is not me telling you, hey, you look great. You put up a great face on let's say on stage. I know that recently you had a beautiful talk in Los Angeles in front of 2,000 people. I was in the crowd, and you were so kind to agree to have this little interview. And but as I said, like, I know you now for a year or so, and what transpires is whatever you preach, you do. And you can really tell that the relationship with your husband is so authentic. I admire for that. Like, this is incredible. Like, so you are a coach, but then at the same time, in the sea of sameness, like, you are the one that actually is living what you're preaching about.
Right. Because I went through the opposite and then I learned what I was doing wrong and then I fixed that. And not that I was the only one doing anything wrong, but I only dated nice guys. I only date nice guys. And so I was consistently bringing out the worst in them. And yes, my husband Rick is amazing. He's incredible. We have a lovely relationship. We both feel that we're very, very blessed, and very fortunate. And it's been very intentional. Like I'm at the time of this recording, I'm 51 years old, if you can believe that.
I don't
And
know. Yeah,
thank you.
I thought we were the same age.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'm
Yeah.
41. I'm 41. I thought we were the same age.
Incredible. You don't like a day over 32 for sure. But I've been at 51, I've been doing personal growth, the inner work for 26 years now. And so when I met Rick, I got him interested in that too. And without doing that, each of us doing our inner work, we probably wouldn't have gotten married. And we're just able to talk and have conversations at a different level because we do the inner work and because we do the business work with our mentor that we all share. But yeah, it's about doing the work, and it's about really relating with your partner and being able to have those conversations and being able to make the adjustments that need to be made. So yeah, I'm
So,
happy to go to the conferences with him too.
so I wanted to ask you in particular. So, in the way that you're discussing right now, you're talking about inner work. You talked about communication, and this is just like a quick intro as I was speaking. Um, can you tell me a little bit more? Because whenever you talk about inner work, the way that I hear it is that um, individually you work on yourselves, and then you make the relationship working, or like the way that you work on yourself is how you show up in life, and you make that big difference in relationships. So can you tell me why is it so important to work with yourself, and what are the basic things that um, s- that people should work on?
Well, the inner work, that's such a big place to be. That's such a big topic. But whether it's in the business world or in our relationships, in the business world, they'll call it mindset, right? So if you have what my niece calls, what she used to have before she started doing her inner work, she was victim to her stinking thinking, as she would say. So if we're constantly in a negative thought loop about everyone or everything, we're basically setting that expectation that that's what we're going to accept into our life. And so when you realize that you are totally responsible for all of the results that you create in your life, not somebody else, not the economy, not the government, we, especially as entrepreneurs, we are responsible for the results we create. And the same is true in our relationships. But if there's a part of us that is unhealed or that is hurting, most of the time we're not even aware of these things until we start doing some inner work. So that unhealed part of us keeps us from being our full and our best self within our relationship. So then there's arguments, there's misunderstandings, there's projection, there's all sorts of things that happen when you don't know what's going on within your own mind. And so in the business world, that's, working on the mindset, and you've got to believe in yourself in order to be able to be a success in the business world. So similar thing in relationships.
Well, I love the way that you talked about basically handbrakes. So you're talking about within relationships, anything that you're not healed, they will always be there, no matter how much sugar you pour in the coffee, it's always gonna be a little bit bitter, right? Like it's because this idea of I call it handbrake because even in my profession, I do come across a lot of that. So whenever I meet somebody and they like, and you can tell they feel they undeserving. They feel like there's always something to wait for. When I lose weight, when I achieve this in business, when I get to a certain point, and most times all of this is within your own mind, and I call them handbrakes because most people don't know that making the change today would affect drastically the immediate future. So sometimes I always find that whenever they try to wait for something, my first talk is, hey, you need to take a first step. Let's take baby step, one step at a time. Do it now. You deserve it. Right now, you'll see an immediate change. An immediate change, and then like the confidence, it's competence. So like as you see things that are happening in your life that you understand, and and then things would progress, and then we can talk about a second or third outfit in my profession, like but in your specific case, it feels like those handbrakes that makes it so even if they work on the relationship, they don't get to that next level. Is that something that happens, or?
Yeah, that's a really good way to explain it. And exactly what you said, that when we take a small step today, it does influence our immediate future, but even further out. It's like a ripple effect. So you throw a pebble into a pond and it creates this ripple and it just grows and grows and grows. Well, that's our future. So that any of the choices that we make today, whether that's food or how we treat our spouse or our kids, or what we do in business today or don't do, that is gonna, like, we are responsible for creating our reality. So that creates our reality not only for tomorrow, but the next day and the next day, until we do something different. And so one of the things that comes up a lot in personal growth, along with the personal responsibility, is if I want something different in my life, if I want my business to be different, if I want my relationship or my health to be different, I have to do something different. I have to
Yeah.
make changes, and I'm doing that right now with, like, I started a new workout program with a trainer. And so I'm creating a different future for myself by doing the reps now. So the reps could be, with the biceps, or it could be with the quality time with the relationship and feeding that what it needs, or it could be, the sales calls that we got to make as being business owners.
Yeah.
Those are the actions that create the future ripples.
So can you tell me actually an example? Because obviously we're talking about doing things now, doing things today. For example, like, just give an example. Most of my clients that will do a step today, they will get that effect and they will have like that transformation, and most likely recognized like publicly. Can you tell me like an example of one of your clients that wasn't taking care of themselves, like, because now we're talking about first like their own self, so they weren't taking care of themselves, they weren't doing the inner work, most likely, or maybe they weren't taking of the external self, so let's say hygiene, grooming, the way they dress, like whatever, however you want to, the way they will present themselves, and then they started taking care of that. So they start taking care of working on the inner self, mindset, let's say the body, like going to the gym, health, possibly even grooming, taking care of the way they present themselves. What change will happen in their life, like working with you?
Yeah, so working with me in the relationship context, I work with people. One example of one client, it's actually someone who, a friend of mine I've known for a number of years. He was in a marriage with someone who would not go see a therapist to heal her trauma. I actually had sessions with both of them, and I said, this is beyond the scope of what I can do as a coach and a facilitator, because she had childhood trauma. I said, until you heal that, whether you two stay together or not, until you heal that, it's going to keep affecting either this relation, this marriage, or any future relationships if you two divorce. And she's in a state where she just wants to blame everybody for her situation. And it's because she hasn't healed that inner childhood trauma. And so she doesn't even know, she doesn't have the emotional intelligence to know that she is projecting her pain onto what was her husband, a really great guy. And so now, a year later, they are divorced, and I'm coaching him because he wants to learn. This is his inner work. He wants to learn, because he's had two marriages that were the same person with a different face and a different name, both of them, and he recognizes in himself he's got that rescuer pattern. So that's one thing. And
Yeah.
women can have this too. We can go, oh my gosh, he's got so much potential. We cannot date a man based on his potential because he has free will on whether he wants to pursue that or not. And so getting in a relationship and thinking we're going to change somebody is a disaster. And everybody wants to be accepted, right, for who they are. So this client, this was an example. Now I'm coaching with him so he does not continue to repeat the rescuer pattern. So he can heal whatever it is within him. And we've found stuff in his childhood that, has created this pattern. It was a ripple from his childhood. He doesn't want to, have his next relationship also be this rescuer pattern. So we are bringing awarenesses to him, doing his inner work so he doesn't repeat those mistakes. And he's got to build his self-esteem to be able to recognize this. Like, okay, I don't want to rescue whoever the next one is. And if she's not willing to be doing her own work, big red flag, can't help you. Come back after you've, done some inner healing. But so it's very wise of him to not want to repeat these patterns. And he's such a great guy. He deserves to be happy. He'd make a great husband for anyone. It's the last thing on his mind right now. But,
And what's the role of self-esteem in the way that he looks? So does he present well, or does it need to work on it?
He doesn't wear House of Falcone suits.
Oh,
no. He doesn't. He's in construction, so he wouldn't be an ideal client for you. He does look great in a suit. I went to his wedding.
Whenever people tell me about the suits, like, I'm gonna go against the pattern and say that I actually don't think that people should wear suits. So not every person should wear a suit. A construction guy is the perfect example. Because the way you present yourself, it needs to be influenced by culture. So like who's around you. It needs to be influenced by your lifestyle. So like, what do you do? What do you believe in? And what are you trying to achieve? So whenever somebody chat to me, let's say that I am speaking specifically to a construction guy, it's quite literally that. So let's say this guy is single, I would say, well, so starting from the end in mind, what kind of woman do you want to be dealing with? Because the way you present yourself, the way you introduce yourself, most times would determine what kind of woman will be attracted to you, right?
Absolutely.
And then your lifestyle. So let's say that he's like, he doesn't take care of his stuff, like, like he really wants to be kind of like carefree whenever putting together an outfit. Like, one of the first things I would say is like, okay, let's focus on fabrics that would be able to withstand your carefreeness, right? Something that you will be able to wear without having worrying, to do something to the fabrics that you wear, right? And then the last thing is like culturally, right? You probably hang out with other construction workers. So you don't want to put him on a pink jacket, because then it will literally have like the friends not dealing well with it. So actually, like, that is the perfect example where I think, style would have an impact in his life and in his actual relationships and probably future businesses, just because. So because I'm Italian, I grew up with that notion that the way you present yourself, it speaks about you, and then it controls what's going to happen to you. So it's almost like the way that you were speaking about your inner work, where, the way you do something today, you work on something like a trauma or something that happened to you, you're working on it today, it will have the ripple effect. For me, it's the same thing. Like, literally, you express yourself, you take care of the way you present yourself, and then that is the ripple effect. So that, like, literally in anything that was going to happen to you. Did you think that I thought suits only, or do you like this this idea.
I love it. I love it. No, that's a great yeah, I think if he showed up at the construction site in anything pink, he would never hear the end of that. I'm sure. It's kind of a macho, macho guy
It
industry.
is.
It's the how you present on the outside as well as on the inside. So yes, how you present on the outside, if any man wants to date a woman who is beautiful and put together and intelligent and competent and loving and generous, whatever their high values are that they're looking for in a partner, I ask them, are you all of those things? Because you're not going to attract what you want, you attract what you are. So even if you
Okay.
have a House
Wow.
of Falcone suit on, if you're all messed up on the inside and childhood trauma or rescuing or, abusive or just not able to connect and go there, like that's who you're going to attract. You're going to attract someone who also hasn't healed their trauma. So maybe that's why those two got together. And so now he's doing the healing. She's still not, but that's her choice.
Oh wow. And then now, like, I want to ask you, because obviously, like, we talked about the inner self, and now I'm so curious. I'm gonna ask you like taboo questions that everybody wants to know, but then I think I don't know. Do you find that people are close-minded when talking about relationships and sex, and like, do you think it's a difficult argument to talk about?
Well, it's interesting because even like with social media, if I use certain words like the word sex, oh my gosh, it's like you can't say that, it's like I'm a relationship coach. How can I not talk about that? Give me a break.
Intercourse.
So it can be taboo. I mean, as soon as I mention it, like, were you at the Sydney Opera House event?
I sure was.
Were you? Yeah, I thought you were. So I talked about sex, to a room full of 500 entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
And the differences between the male and female needs, and so because I wanted to give an actionable item or important piece of information to both men and women. And I had so many people come up there and last month in LA and thank me for that. So even though they might not talk about it openly, whenever I start talking about it, it draws them in because they know like, oh, that part of our life could be better,
Yeah.
or now
Can you
they know
tell
how
us?
to communicate
Can
to
you
their
tell us a
partner.
little bit about on camera about like the things that you talked about at the Sydney Opera House?
Yeah, yeah. I was just thinking I should have found my notes for that. But let's see. The big
So
piece of advice.
sex, men and women, and this is men and
Yeah.
women in a long term relationship, or does it change or?
Well, it definitely changes over the years. So you got to find ways to keep it interesting and keep it spicy. And that again all boils down to communication. And that's why I focus on sex and intimacy in my coaching. Not just that, but I just kind of have a specialization in that I'm enjoying because I love talking about it. I mean, when we were there in LA at that bigger conference, we did that spontaneous sexperts Q&A panel with four of us being sex and relationship experts. Like that was so much fun. But at the Sydney Opera House, the I gave two pieces of advice that men and women typically don't know. So when it comes to being ready and available for sex, men are like microwaves. They just need a push of a button and they're ready to go. Women are like ovens. We need to be preheated. So like we need the foreplay. We need all of that for our body to be ready physically, not just ready in our mind, but physically. But it helps up here too. And
Hmm.
then I shared one of my favorite things that I learned from my mentor. When you touch a woman's body all over, I'm talking from fingertips down to her toes, top of her head, when you just like touch a woman's body all over before the orgasm, it turns her orgasm into this full body experience rather than just a localized experience. And so that's what all the women were thanking me for. They're like, thank you so much for telling the men that and the preheat the oven part. But it makes it, I like to call that the foreplay before the foreplay. So it can be a massage, it can be just touching with soft material, just kisses, whatever, but like you want to, the more of her body that's touched before the orgasm, then all of those parts are included in the orgasm. So
Wow, that's awesome. And if I may play devil's advocate, so let's say, have you ever met men that are oven instead of a microwave?
That's a great question. Some men,
Italians, Italians.
Italians and slow burn, huh?
we,
Yeah,
we,
yeah.
we want to be court, like
You want to be
women.
courted too?
Yeah,
Yeah. You want to be pursued. Everybody likes to feel desired and
yeah.
everybody likes to feel desirable. So it's nice to like feel those signals or hear those words from other people, especially from your partner, right? And to feel desired and attractive and desirable. And men, as they mature a little bit and their testosterone starts to decline, in the 40s and beyond, then they start to value the connection part of it a little bit more. So there's sex and there's intimacy. And what's interesting is when I say the word intimacy, the male brain hears sex.
Right.
Intimacy is not sex.
Yeah. What is it?
Intimacy, it's that connection, it's the holding hands, the hugging, the cuddling, the talking. And so as men age and their testosterone starts to decline, they become more interested in that connection and that level of intimacy. And it's so important that they feel, we always talk about like women needing to feel safe. I have an entire chapter in my book on the 6 dimensions of safety for women, but men also want to feel safe with their partner and being able to open up and to not be criticized or to not have something held against them for the next 20 years. So there's got to be that that level of intimacy and trust, really. So some men, that's really important to them. Yeah.
What are like some advice that you might have for to spark those intimacy moments, those intimate moments in a couple? What would you tell them to do? Like any steps?
So I highly recommend, there's a tiny little book called The 5 Love Languages. And yeah, it's a great one. And it's written by a marriage counselor. And you can just go on his website. It's the5lovelanguages.com. And you can take a little survey. And so I think each partner should do that. In fact, I've just started coaching a new couple right now who are struggling. And so that was their first assignment after our first session. Go and figure out what your top 2 love languages are. So each person takes their own survey and just answer the questions honestly. It's super simple. And then it gives you, at the end, it gives you a rating of this is your top love language, this is 50% for you or whatever. And the next one is 30%. So I think that couples should focus on those top 2. And then if you read the book or on my YouTube channel, I went over all of the 5 love languages in a series of videos. You start to speak your partner's love language. Okay. Because when our love language is not being fulfilled from our partner, then our love tank runs dry. It's like having an empty gas tank. You can't go anywhere. And then ultimately you don't feel loved. And your partner might be showing you love in their love language, and they think that they're doing all the right things. But if your love language is something different, I mean, look, if I only speak Spanish and my husband only speaks Chinese, it's going to be an issue, right? It's going to be a communication issue. Not today with Google Translate, maybe, but it'll be an issue until we take the time and effort to learn each other's language and literally speak each other's language. And so that's really important. So physical touch is one of the love languages, but that's not a high one for everybody. So finding out your partner's love language and then starting to do those little things for them in their language, it can fill up the tank so fast. And when that's happening, when men and women, when we feel loved, when we feel appreciated, and when we feel desired, we're much more likely to want to have the sex and intimacy with our partner.
That's awesome. And I mean, and the other thing that I've heard, there was a video that I was watching about sex and long-term relationships. It was about the fact that number one, it was about if the sexless marriages, there's a lot to do with anger and resentment. There was a lot to do with the fact that you might really like this person, you might really love actually this person, but you're also very angry. You're also very resentful. And and it's very tough. Like, so then that's when sex it comes across and is difficult to re-engage, or
Right.
that was on the video. And then the other thing that was on this video was about you shouldn't wait to be you will never be like ready to have sex. Is more like you should try to introduce it gradually, like within the days, like do the things that might put you in the mood, quote unquote. So let's
Right.
say you were talking about love languages, so maybe like physical touch, or if it's words of affirmation, or anything that will put you a text, or something that will put you, or maybe like the room, like the music, the candles, whatever it is, something that will put you in that context. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on both of those, like
Yeah.
anger and resentment, and then what are few of the steps that you would advise to a couple to put yourself in that mood?
Yeah, yeah, these are great questions. So, uh, over time in relationships, absolutely anger and resentment can build up, and nobody wants to have sex with somebody if they're feeling resentful, if they're feeling unappreciated. And this can be very common. Women can feel like, okay, he doesn't do enough around the house, or he's not home enough. Or, she can quite frankly just be so exhausted from work and kids and all of that. Like she needs a little help and she needs a little downtime. Again, the foreplay before the foreplay. But if there is that anger and resentment that's been simmering, and you're not able to communicate about it, and you're not able to solve it, that's when you want to find a coach or a therapist, because then you've got a qualified and trained like an impartial third party that can hear what both people are saying. I have this weird superpower that just anywhere, when I see two people talking, I can tell if this person said something and this person totally didn't get it. Like it didn't land. It went that way. I don't know why, but I can tell. I'm like, that person didn't understand what you just said. And
Yeah.
so in the context of couples, if she says something and he might hear it as an attack. So women often feel, taken for granted and overworked, and not, the men aren't contributing enough. And men will often feel criticized. Ladies, we criticize without realizing it. And that just deteriorates the relationship for sure. So if you're not able to have those conversations without it turning into a heated argument or the silent treatment, then that's where you want to have a qualified third party go in there, have a session so you can really hear. So then when she says he's not home enough or he doesn't help enough around the house, and then he takes it as an attack or a criticism, we can back that up and go, well, wait a minute, why is that important to you? And we'll unravel it, and we'll discover, certain words that she uses makes him feel criticized or unappreciated, and certain actions that he does or doesn't do makes her feel unappreciated or unloved. So when we start to unravel that and really find out what's beneath something, because we can all say like, this is important to me, quality time is important, or sex is important, or whatever. But we want to go under that and go, why is that important to you? What does it provide for you? I especially teach women to use that word, provide, because that men have an instinct to provide and protect for the people that they love. And when we can tell a man, when you did this, when you came home early on Friday and played with the kids and ordered takeout, what that provided for me was a chance to take a bubble bath and decompress from my hard week. And that wine you brought home was delicious. And guess what? After all that, she might be in the mood, because
She might be ready.
yeah, she might be ready, because those are ways that you can shift to get into the mood. So onto that topic, one of my master classes that I have is called Orgasm versus Intimacy. And are we going after the orgasm or are we going after the intimacy? There's a kind of a masculine, feminine approach to that. And when a couple gets together, luckily I learned this from my mentor just before I met my husband. And so I just led with this. I said, okay, how many times a week is the right amount for you to have sex? And he told me, and it was a little higher than what I needed. And I said, okay, that's what we do. So you find out when it comes to sex, you find out this is what his need is, and this is what her need is. And it's about providing for each other's needs, in all the ways that you already do, perhaps financially and emotionally. You provide for each other because you're in this partnership. You've agreed to be partners. So you want to provide for each other's needs. This is just another need. And he might have, a physical need for X amount of orgasms per week. And she might have an emotional need for private time with him and cuddling and, I don't know, foreplay, whatever, so it's about finding out what each partner needs. And it's making the commitment to meet that need for each partner. So then the time comes, I'm not in the mood, I'm tired. What am I going to do? Well, maybe a bubble bath and a glass of wine is my thing. Maybe going to a yoga class. Women, especially in our society right now, we are so much in our heads and not in our bodies. So doing an activity to help get us into our body, that's why the touching all over is so nice, or massage or yoga or, whatever it is that helps her shift from that mental work mode, I have to solve all the world's problems, to, okay, now I'm here and I'm relaxed and I'm in my body. Can you see how she'd be more open and receptive then to sex or an orgasm?
I love it. I love it. Actually, as you were talking about, I was like, oh my God, there's a million questions. And I feel like I want to ask you, I'm gonna do a game. Let's do
Oh
rapid
boy.
fire questions, and you tell me your thoughts. Let's give it like, I don't know. I can even put like a minute to each question, so like we don't go
Yeah.
over to it. So you were talking about, so first question, you were talking about orgasm and men and women. So what's the role of masturbation? So for men and women, and what's the role within between that and the sex, as in like in a couple?
Oh boy, you like the big questions, don't you? So, yeah, I mean,
1 minute, go.
1 minute. Okay, gosh. Yeah. Certain cultures, might say that masturbation is wrong. Again, for usually for the male body and the male brain, sex is a physical need. And that release and that orgasm is a physical need. For a man, if he goes 8 days without an orgasm, his testosterone has doubled. So you want to talk about grouchy and hard to deal with. Not good. For a woman, it's interesting, it's the opposite. When we have an orgasm, we are spending oxytocin. So if you can think of oxytocin as a bank account, when we have an orgasm, we're draining that bank account. We're spending that oxytocin. Well, if we're exhausted and working and not doing the things that provide oxytocin for us, we don't have it to spend. The sound of an orgasm sounds exhausting. I know a lot of women can relate to this. The sound of having an orgasm is exhausting. It's because her oxytocin is so depleted. So again, love languages, and then oxytocin producing activities.
Okay, I love it. Sex toys in a couple, yes or no, and why and when?
Absolutely. Yes. So here's the thing. Maybe guys get intimidated by a toy or whatever. Listen, he is your teammate. That toy is your teammate. You are all on the same team. You're here to please this woman. Let me tell you, the female anatomy is so difficult. Like, we are all so different, and everyone has different needs, and how they achieve orgasm or receive pleasure is very different. And so if the guys can look at the sex toys, and maybe the ladies too, let's look at the sex toys as, this is here to enhance our marriage, not to replace me, but this is my teammate here to produce the goal of satisfying my woman or satisfying my man.
I love it.
Yes,
I
on
love
toys. Keep them charged. Yes.
it. Keep them charged.
That's worse than a toy that isn't charged when you're in the moment. Ugh, that's the worst. Keep it plugged in.
uh,
That's my advice.
open marriages, having relationships outside of the marriage. Yeah,
Yeah. So
why, when, and how,
Mhm.
really?
Yeah. So that's a big thing right now, and that's part of my sex and intimacy coaching. The big buzzword right now is called ethical non-monogamy or consensual non-monogamy. And so this is a thing, and it can come to light definitely in the long-term relationships. It requires a ton of communication, really being open and honest. Both people have to feel secure in the relationship and know that they are loved, and whatever is happening with permission outside of the relationship, with consent, that's not about love. That's just about fun.
I
Unless
like
you're
it.
into polyamory. Polyamory is something a little different. I don't have any experience with that, so I don't coach on it, but there are coaches that's, having loving relationships with multiple people. So that, who has time for that? I don't know. That's kind of hard, but ethical non-monogamy is a thing, and exploring each other's fantasies. I mean, there's so much that a couple can do without even involving anybody else. Fantasies, role play, like start exploring each other's fantasies. You got to be in a place where you can be really honest and open with each other and not feel threatened or hurt. So both partners have to feel safe that the person is not going to,
Love it.
leave them alone.
Actually, that was the next question. Role play. So role
Yeah.
play in terms of so how and when.
Okay, so I love role play. Role play is so fun. So like we all have these little fantasies in our head. So like why not act them out with our spouse? Like who's safer to do that with, right? And so but it can be uncomfortable at first for couples to even have these conversations. So just start small, just start small. But one really fun favorite one, especially in a long-term relationship, maybe you don't go out on dates anymore. Get all dressed up like you're going out on a first date, and then go to a bar and like let her sit at the bar looking all beautiful, let the other men hit on her, right? Because they will. And then you come along and you can act like you two have never met. You can even use different names if you want, and just have a conversation as if you're just meeting for the first time. Flirt with each other. You're all dressed up. You're both looking good. Like that can be really hot. That can be really fun and you can get to know each other again on a different level, even though you have known each other for so long. So that can be a fun one.
I love it. I don't know if you realize, but you did use the word dressed up. So like literally in that fantasy, the relationship changes because she dresses up and he dresses up. Why is
Mhm.
that?
Well, it's so easy to just be at home and be in our yoga pants and to not be going on those fancy dates like when we first met. So it's about, again, how you look and how you present yourself. You're going to carry yourself different. When I'm wearing a dress and heels, like my strut is a little different when I'm wearing, yoga pants and tennis shoes. So, and I feel different. And for women, when we're looking like that, we can feel very powerful and very attractive. And then, having people attracted to us is very powerful. So,
And possibly it's the same for a guy. Like feel
probably you
powerful,
tell me.
attract. Well, I think the feeling of being powerful, attractive,
Mhm.
is and in control is a very strong thing. Like I,
Mhm.
I think I learned this at a very young age. I was I feel like I was lucky because I was always in a co-ed space. So like ever since I was in school, and I always had that feedback. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, you look good. Yeah, you don't look good. Like your hair is good or your attitude is good, right? So then that's how I learned through my years. But then now, if you were asking me, I think I always feel very powerful. I always feel very confident. Um, and I live my life in that confidence, and I feel that things happen and people say yes to me in any situation. So like
Mhm.
we were talking about business before, so like that's a yes in business whenever you're confident and things will happen to you. But then in the role play scenario or in the relationships scenario, I feel that going to a bar, I am confident enough that
Mhm.
that to speak to that woman. I am confident enough to know that that's going to happen. So I don't know if that's a mindset. I think it's both. It must be mindset and the way I feel, uh, and obviously the way I dress and the way that I present myself has a big impact and big influence on what's going to happen in that exchange. But it's interesting that you have like that same idea for women. So like it's women like wearing the high heels, the dress, and like it's cool, very very cool.
Whatever they feel sexy in. It could be tight jeans and cowboy boots, like whatever they feel sexy in, whatever fits their personality. Or, sometimes we get out of our comfort zone a little bit and experience something new. So
Yeah,
it definitely helps.
I like it. We just talked about in a way controlling the room and the way that you present yourself. Let's talk about control. So control in a relationship. There will be like the extremes. So the there will be the slave and the very top, right? How do you call it? I just like
Yeah,
it's
there's
escaping
there's
me
so there's
my
dominant,
dominant.
submissive. So
Right.
there's the
So
master and the servant
and
and
this
whatever. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So you have like those scenarios where it's the extreme dominance versus servant, and then there's like the in between. Tell me about again, why, when, how.
Oh yeah, this is fun. So this is part of what is called kink or BDSM, and it is a spectrum, just like the color spectrum, just like the mood spectrum, anything. And so there are all different levels of submission and dominance. And so first you've got to figure out which partner wants to be the dominant and which partner wants to be the submissive, or maybe you take turns and see how that goes. Now, in the world of kink and BDSM, consent is everything. The dominant is not doing something to the submissive that that they don't want or that they haven't already agreed to. So in a way, the submissive is in charge. So there's communication up front about what the submissive wants and doesn't want to experience. And then there are safe words. So when you are in what's called a scene together, you're creating a scene. And again, this can be the role play thing. This can be the I'm not going to go into detail, but this can be role play.
This is the juicy part.
Well, whenever there's a power dynamic difference, which is what we're talking about here with the submissive. So if it's like, the helpless lady and the big strong guy, or it could be like either person is pretending to go get a massage and the other person is the massage therapist who, gets a little inappropriate because you've agreed to this. But there's all sorts of role play that can be done. But within the spectrum of kink and BDSM, it goes from very light and pleasure to very, very extreme. There's all sorts of and everything in between. And so it's about communication up front. What does each person want to experience? And then the agreement on using the safe words. So the typical safe words are because you want to stay in your scene. If you're doing a role play, if you're doing a kink scene, you don't want to step out of character, so to speak, and say, oh, how is that? Are you okay? Are you enjoying this? So if there's any doubt, then the submissive person can say green. Green means everything's okay. Yellow means you're approaching a boundary. So, don't go any further than where you're at now, or maybe back off a little. And this is all agreed upon up front, right? This is where communication is so important. Red, if the submissive person in the submissive position says red, everything stops immediately.
I see.
So, yeah.
I like it.
So all
This
of
is the
that
first
has to
time
be
I hear.
negotiated.
This
Yeah.
is the first time I hear. Like usually, like you hear like I don't know, banana, pineapple. Like you just say something random and everything stops. But I like this green, yellow, red.
Yeah, it's easy
It
to
sounds like a little
understand.
bit more fun. Yeah.
It's easy to
Um,
understand. And typically during sex, nobody's going to be yelling, red, red, red. They're going to say something else. So it's just a word that we wouldn't normally say when we're in an intimate,
yeah,
situation.
yeah,
Pineapple could also work. Sure. Yeah.
yeah. The one thing I wanted to ask you, obviously, like we touch a lot of things today. Um, your work and we have fun and we're like joking around now, but I feel like your work, it's such a massive has such a massive impact on the people and the lives that you touch. And I honestly believe that I hope that this conversation has opened the floodgates to people that would want to reach out to you and understand that it is very important, like, to have a person like you in their relationships, because as you showed in this interview, like, you were able to um normalize and talk about things without guilt, without fear, without taboos, if anything, I feel like any taboos, anything that for most people make them feel guilty or fearful, you will be the one to help them discover that and kind of like let go of some of those things. So it is very, very incredible spending time with you and giving you, like, giving, like, hearing like what you have to say. And again, like I said at the beginning of the interview, you preach and you also apply to your own life. And it's so authentic, it's so real, like it's incredible, like seeing what you do. Like it's an absolute pleasure, like it's so good.
Thank you.
um
Thank you. Can I just say something about the guilt and shame real quick?
Please,
We got a minute?
please.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a big one. And just, there's so many societal ideals, right? With like, this is wrong, this is right. And my mantra for the last 2 years is I have unsubscribed from that programming. And for me personally, that as a part of my journey, I've unsubscribed from the societal programming of what's right and wrong. I've unsubscribed from the political and the religious programming. That's just not like, because those types of programmings can create guilt and shame. So guilt is typically when somebody feels bad about something they did. Shame is usually when they feel bad about who they are. And
Mm.
that we are not born with that. We are not born with guilt and shame. Those things are imprinted upon us from other people's ideals. And I didn't subscribe to like having to live that life or be that way. And so I'm actually on a mission to help people really let go of guilt and shame. And, if our bodies weren't meant to experience pleasure, then the creator would not have made us in the beautiful, lovely, divine design that it did. So I think pleasure is healthy. Of course, lots of communication to help within the context of the relationship, but pleasure is healthy and normal and natural. Shame and guilt are societal ideals that we don't need to subscribe to.
Wow, I love it. I love it. And such a deep and meaningful mission. And I think and again, like, it's about understanding sometimes what people do. So whenever there's talk about relationship coach and sex and sexuality coach, there's always, I feel, in a more traditional mind, there was always gonna be a handbrake, be like, oh, but do I need it? Do I don't need it? Versus what you just said is about understanding to let go of certain dogmas, to let go and to the guilt and shame and live a more free life, and most likely a more authentic and more in your skin life. And it's almost like and I don't know if you were surprised, like, by this conversation, but similar way, whenever I work with somebody, the suit or the tailored piece is always, it's almost like a last thing, and it's almost like an effect out of the work that we do together. It's almost like I care more about the transformation and about the for the voice to be heard in a room versus, let me get you like the most expensive suit that I can possibly sell you. Like for me, it's about what is right for you. What is it gonna move the post? What is it gonna make it so you are recognized in the way that you want to be recognized, in the way that you want to be seen by everyone. So, like I'm very lucky because like I have in this beautiful community that we're part of, like, like I have the actual proof, like, they're coming back to us and to me, and they tell me, like, the effect and that they had in the with the people, the comments, and sometimes like people that are not used to that. So like they get like that comment, that compliment. Were you surprised by my approach, or what were you thinking before
I
meeting
didn't know
me?
what we'd talk about, but I love it. I think, this needs to be talked about more because it's like, why do we have to have shame around talking about sex? None of us would be here if it wasn't for sex, right? Like
Yeah.
none of us even have been conceived. So it doesn't need to be taboo. There doesn't need to be shame around it. And in fact, when we have more communication and more consent, then there's less sexual trauma. So like there's no reason to not talk about that. But I want to say, like what you were just saying about the people and the clothing that you create for them at LA, at that conference in LA. Every time I saw like this amazing looking suit, and I'm like, wow, that's really great, and they're like, oh, it's Falcone, like every single time. It was just like, wow. So it's great. It's great to see you clothing all of us. I know
Flourish.
my husband has got a couple of suits from you. I'm kind of dropping hints like, okay, maybe for Christmas or for a birthday, I might need a House of Falcone suit, one day. But
Can't wait.
yeah, but
Can't
it's
wait.
great to see. Super high
We're doing it.
quality. And everybody looks, I mean, your suits are just so custom, and it is that authenticity. So when somebody is, feeling powerful because they look good, we got the heels, we got the suit. And when we are being authentically who we are, like we're in alignment, and other people can sense that energetically. You're either
Yeah.
in alignment with yourself or you're not. You're either being authentic and honest or you're not. Other people
Mhm.
can pick up on that. They might not know what it is, but it's like, there's something kind of off about that person. So definitely like the beautiful clothing that you create for people definitely helps to build that confidence and that authenticity. I love it.
Well, and I mean, for me, like it's about like an expression of themselves. Like, it's a, you know, I'm gonna draw a thing. So the sex toy is an extension of yourself during sex, and the tailor suit is an extension of yourself whenever you need it. So it's a team. Again, it's teamwork. You're going on stage. You don't have to think. You don't have time to think about how you look, and you need to be in that in that zone. You need to be in that state where you can crush it, when you can show your authentic self, and you can show it to everyone looking at you. And that goes whether you're on stage or whether you're in a crowd that might be intimidating. But then when you're your best self, are you really gonna be intimidated? So it's literally sex toy equals great suit.
I love it. Maybe for every suit purchase, they need to get a free sex toy and a 30-minute coaching session with me. We could work a bonus into there. But no,
That's it. That's
exactly
it. It's done.
what you were
Done.
saying with being on stage, because I love being on stages. So I coach, but I write and speak and teach, and those are my favorite things to do. And I coach when needed, but I'm like, all my information is here in the book and in the classes. But yeah, when I'm on stage, like if I'm uncomfortable, if I'm concerned about my outfit because it's not fitting right or there's something scratchy, that is totally distracting. And for a speaker, when you're up there, you can't be thinking about a scratchy tag or something that doesn't you don't feel great in. Like you've got to that's got to be dialed in so it's not even on your mind other than you look awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
thank
mean,
you for
I
the
don't
work
know.
that you do.
I don't know if you noticed, like, and this is like the, because I was like lucky enough, like, to be on stage for a little bit. Did you notice I was wearing three-piece suits? Like, all of my suits
Yeah.
had vests. Do you know why though? Like, and this
I
is like,
don't know why.
so the reason I do like three-piece suits, but for a man in the 40s, I was having a little bit of like body dysmorphia. Like I feel like I'm a little bit overweight right now. Like I think, like I mean, the scale doesn't lie. Like I'm probably like 5 kilos overweight, and I was self-conscious. So for me, having the vest, it was my armor because I can almost guarantee that nobody thought that was overweight. Nobody
Yeah, I don't
saw
think you're
that,
overweight.
right?
Yeah.
But that was like my secret. Like that's my weapon. I was like, okay, I'm just gonna wear a vest on because I don't want to be thinking how is my belly gonna look like while I'm on stage.
Yeah,
So
you don't
like
need that
literally,
distraction.
right? That's very, very cool.
But I
Barbara,
saw around the
yeah,
conference, I saw several women wearing vests too, sometimes even without the jacket, and it looked
that looks cool.
It was just, I mean, because it is custom tailored to their body and they look great. The fabrics are beautiful and rich. And like one day I'll have one of your suits.
No, one day we'll do it. We'll do it. No worries about it.
You have my permission to reach out to my husband. So yeah.
Stay on the line. But for now, thank you so much, Barbara. Like it's been incredible spending time with you. Like, and it's I sincerely hope like this is gonna be a message for all of the ears out there. They're a little bit more too traditional to talk about sex, and they'll take that on board and they'll reach out to you. Thank you again for being here.
I'm here. Thank you, Bruno.